Welcome into the PFF NFL Daily. Today discussing the Bucs and an unfortunate Chris Godwin season-ending ACL injury. So the Bucs coming off of not just their worst game of the season by far, but also the most costly. With Godwin getting hurt, still need to learn more about Mike Evans and Leonard Fournette. But Sam, the Bucs, can they repeat now without Chris Godwin in the lineup?
Yeah, it's a big loss. I mean, obviously, we've been talking about this Tampa Bay Buccaneers receiving core as incredibly deep, as incredibly varied. And one of the things that made them so good down the stretch last year is that you never knew which guy was going to show up in any given week. You know, depending on what the defense was showing them, some weeks were going to be Antonio Brown games. Some weeks were going to be Gronk games. Some were Mike Evans. Some were Chris Godwin. But we've seen this year, as these guys have been injured or suspended or injured or, you know, all these kinds of things chipping away at it, that yeah, the depth is great, but all of a sudden, when you start testing that depth, the guys behind, they're nice, you know, to come in for a few plays, but as soon as you have to start relying on them, it isn't as swell. So Chris Godwin, you know, by the sort of cumulative measures this year, is their best receiver, most targets, most receptions, most yards, all those kinds of things. It's a big loss.
Yeah, and they were all kind of fitting different roles. So Antonio Brown, he's back this week. So there aren't a lot of teams that do have that level of depth. Antonio Brown coming off of an ankle injury plus the 3-game suspension. So most teams don't have that luxury. But again, what made the Bucs so difficult to cover was that these guys were all out there at the same time, along with Rob Gronkowski and Cameron Brate. And then Fournette has really become a nice threat out of the backfield. So the Bucs did have different answers every single week. And the Godwin part of that equation was like uber possession receiver, right? He catches all the screens. They did a great job highlighting that on Sunday Night Football. Bruce Arians says, my receivers who block, they get to catch the screens. So Godwin's done a nice job there. He works the middle of the field. So that's going to be, I think, the question for the Bucs is, you know, Mike Evans, more of an outside receiver. They'll line him up in the slot every now and again and stretch the seam. Antonio Brown, more of an outside receiver who works the middle of the field. They don't really have another true slot receiver. Is it Tyler Johnson? Scotty Miller, even though he is a short receiver who looks, you know, shifty and quick, isn't really a slot. He's more of an outside vertical threat. So I think replacing the Godwin role specifically is going to be, you know, the biggest question mark in this whole equation here for the Bucs.
Yeah, it potentially opens up an opportunity for guys like Tyler Johnson or Scotty Miller or even Jalen Darden to come in and sort of fill a different type of slot role, but a slot role within that offense. The other guy that I think now becomes basically paramount for them is Antonio Brown, you know, with him coming back. Bruce Arians, you know, earlier in the time that Antonio Brown was with the team was basically saying if he, you know, he's been a model citizen in Tampa Bay, and if he steps out of line once, he's out of here. Well, he did step out of line with the vaccination card, whatever we're calling that, you know, misunderstanding, forgery, who can tell?
Fake one, fake card.
Yeah, exactly. So he did that, and Bruce Arians is like, he served his time. He can come back. We actually quite need him right now, so we're not going to get rid of him just at the moment.
But they were going to do that anyway. I don't think this was on the
no,
back
I'm not
Chris
saying
Godwin
yeah, but I am saying that like his tune has changed since since it was an abstract theory that yes, if Antonio Brown steps out of line, we'll get rid of him, and now all of a sudden we actually need him quite a bit. He's quite an important part of this team, whether or not Chris Godwin is around. So actually, we're going to keep him around now that he can come back from the suspension. But my point is, I think he becomes absolutely paramount to this offense because he's the one guy that can move around the entire formation, line up inside or outside just as well as he can, you know, anywhere else. Mike Evans, I don't think has that kind of flexibility, even though I know they move him, you know, into the slot on occasions. Obviously, Gronk is a completely different type of receiver. Like Antonio Brown becomes the most important receiver on that team now.
Yeah, and for perspective, Antonio Brown, even when he showed up late last year, highest receiving grade among all the receivers. He's got the highest receiving grade on the team for this year as well. And he was getting behind the defense once or twice a game early in the year, providing that deep threat that really since Antonio Brown went down injured, they haven't really had that pure deep threat. Last year, you'd have Scotty Miller doing it every now and again. Mike Evans does it now and again. But Antonio Brown was that true deep threat. But you're right. He can work the slot. He can do a little bit of everything and maybe replace some of those Chris Godwin targets. 'Tis the season of giving, and DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, they're giving you a Christmas present you won't want to re-gift. New customers can bet just $5 on any of the 4 NFL teams playing on Christmas, and you win $150 in free bets if they're victorious. Why not win some green and put some extra jingle in your pocket? If Sportsbook isn't yet available in your state, Christmas can still be merry. Everyone can play for huge cash prizes with DraftKings Daily Fantasy Football Contest, and DraftKings is giving all new customers a free shot at millions of dollars in total prizes with their first deposit. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code PFF. Bet just $5 on any NFL team to win on Christmas Day and win $150 in free bets if they're victorious. It's promo code PFF this Christmas at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Must be 21 or older. New Jersey, Indiana, Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Minimum $5 deposit, $1 wager required. One per customer. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. We made it through.
Struggling with that one.
Yeah. I usually, go from you talking and then I jump in. It just wasn't the perfect flow here today. Wasn't the perfect flow. But Merry Christmas from DraftKings.
Absolutely. The other thing that Chris Godwin brings that I don't think any of those other guys really do is he's really good making guys miss after the catch. Like, he catches a lot more of those sort of shallow type of plays and can turn them into significantly bigger gains by making guys miss in short areas. And again, that's something like Antonio Brown has a little bit of that, but obviously is a less sort of strong, stout individual with the ball in his hands. Obviously Gronk busts through tackles, but that's like, Gronk smash, like Juggernaut from the X-Men, just head down, plow straight through people. It's not quite the same thing. So I think that's another skill set that just isn't quite anywhere else on that roster.
Yeah, and that's more important this year, I think, than last year, because last year's Bucs team had a little bit more, I think, of the Bruce Arians fingerprints were on the offense more last year, meaning more vertical passing, less yak-driven plays. This year, I think Brady's got a little bit more influence. He is a little bit happier to take some of the underneath stuff this year and let Chris Godwin make plays after the catch, or let Leonard Fournette catch the ball quickly and try to make people miss. So we'll see if they end up reverting back a little bit more to last year, where they're still aggressive. They still throw the ball down the field, but will they have to do that a little bit more? And that does play to Antonio Brown's skill set a little bit as well. Now, on top of all that, the Bucs are coming off a demoralizing performance. Now, as a team, historically, if you look at Tom Brady's career, it's not like he hasn't had duds. His teams have had duds along the way and still bounce back and made Super Bowl runs. Last year, it happened on Sunday Night Football against the Saints. It's happened in 2004. It happened against the Dolphins on Monday Night Football, one of the worst teams in the league. Like, these things have happened throughout the years. Kansas City famous Monday Night Football. It always seems to be a primetime game when everybody's watching. So we have a history of Brady rallying the team to get back. But did Sunday night also expose this team a little bit? That, look, when Godwin and Evans were out, but do they not have enough options this year, or not have the ability to adjust maybe like they did down the stretch last year?
Yeah, I mean, there's probably two things there. One, for some reason, the Saints have some sort of freaky voodoo over Tampa Bay right now. I'm not entirely sure what's behind that. Obviously, they have a pretty good game plan for them, but like they were beating the Bucs in ways that nobody else has beaten them this year. In terms of, the Bucs have one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. I think they're number 2 in our most recent PFF rankings, offensive line rankings. And they were getting their ass whooped by the Saints defensive line, which is fine. Like, it's a good defensive line. There's some talented players there, but they shouldn't have been winning to the degree that they were winning on Sunday Night Football. Like, that is a strange, anomalous thing that was happening in that game that obviously goes a long way to explaining why the Bucs weren't able to put points on the board. But I'm not sure is a repeatable thing that, like, the next team along can just roll up and go, oh, all we got to do is like beat their offensive line all day long. Like, that's how you beat the Tampa Bay Bucs. So I think that's one thing that the Saints are just, for some reason, have like a hold over them right now. But then the other thing is, I think you are looking at, like, they might be able to withstand the loss of Godwin, but if they lose anybody else, and Antonio Brown's missed a lot of time in recent years for one reason or another. Rob Gronkowski is only ever a hit away from being injured for the next period of time. Like that, it's a very, very fragile receiving core all of a sudden that is one injury away from suddenly being problematic. Like the guys that they have are nice depth pieces and can step in and fill in here or there. But I think if they have to rely on one of those guys as a number one or a number two for a stretch, for a run of play, including the playoffs, all of a sudden the wheels might fall off.
Yeah, we've already seen Antonio Brown miss time for two different reasons this year. Gronkowski's missed time this year. Mike Evans has the hamstring from Sunday night. So the Bucs are a little bit more fragile on offense, and Tom Brady certainly has to play much better than he has in recent weeks down the stretch here. The Tampa Bay Bucs missing Chris Godwin. We'll see if they could still make that Super Bowl run. We got to answer the question, Sam. Can they make a Super Bowl run without Godwin? Yes or no? Yes, they can. The Bucs can still do it. It's PFF NFL.